Welcome to Wednesday Wisdom. Today we explore one of the most misunderstood and high stakes parts of nonprofit leadership: coalition work. Partnerships promise scale, visibility, shared resources, and expanding reach, but they can also drain capacity, blur identity, slow decision making, and even derail mission clarity. After 24 years of cultural diplomacy, arts education, government partnerships, and multi institution collaborations, I'm sharing what I've learned about how to partner well, when to walk away, and how to structure collaborations that build momentum instead of destroying it. Welcome to episode 13 of Wednesday Wisdom. I'm your host, Mazi Mutafa, Executive Director and co founder of Words, Beats, and Life. We're going to break our conversation down into multiple segments. The first one is why coalitions matter. If you are the creator of a creative business or a nonprofit in general, one of the first things that you're going to need to do is find people that agree enough with you to work with you on building that organization. Coalition building is just an extension of that, finding the people whose work is operating in a similar vein, serving a similar community, or towards a similar ends, who, if you work together, would actually amplify the reach and the impact of your work. So partners expand legitimacy on some levels because there are other people to vouch for the quality of what you do. They expand the reach, meaning more hands, or that idea of many hands make light work, and credibility, because when you create things that are bigger that more people can see and participate in, you build a level of credibility within your community and beyond. Systems change requires multiple actors. No one's going to change a system by themselves. Even those that seem to be charismatic leaders doing things on their own have lots of people working with them behind the scenes, pulling levers and digging holes and building things that they get to take the credit for. But it is the ability of folks to help advance an idea or project or program that promotes systems change, whether it's systems within a school or systems within an organization or a community. Funders often require collaboration. There are a ton of grants that are available, or even corporate sponsorship opportunities that require you to not bring just yourself, but to bring partners who are able to help scale the thing that you're willing to work on. We learn faster together than we do in isolation. One of my favorite things to do is to reach out to nonprofit and for-profit leaders who are operating in similar spaces to be able to pick their brains and be able to share some of my insights and to learn from what it is that they're doing. You don't need to learn from only your mistakes. You can learn from other people's mistakes. There's a quote by CeeLo from Goody Mob who said, "Whether I learn from your upcomings or your downfalls, we all have individual purpose." Partnerships are not optional for organizations seeking transformational impact. They are a requirement. Why do coalitions break down if they're so important? Well, a few reasons. One could be misaligned mission or power dynamics between the people who are trying to work together. If it was easy to work with other people, everyone would do it. But because it's difficult, it's going to be difficult. But that doesn't mean it's not necessary. Egos versus shared purpose. It is always important when egos emerge, as they always will, to recognize that there have to be people at the table willing to always bring you back from the me to the we, to the shared purpose, the idea that brought us all together, the reason why each of us started our own business or organization or operating as an individual artist in the world. What is the thing that made me decide I want to do this to be able to make the world a better place? Hidden agendas or unclear agreements. Scopes of work, letters of agreement, paperwork that details the things that you have agreed to do are pivotal in creating meaningful collaborations and partnerships. You should never assume that you have shared understanding just because you had shared language, because a lot of times, and I've had this experience a lot, where I talk to people and explain things, and then when it's time for them to tell me back what it is that I said, they totally missed the thing that I was talking about. So if that happens to me, I'm sure that it happens to other people. I'm sure that I sometimes misunderstand. Writing it down, refining it, revisiting what you wrote is going to be really important to making sure that you have clear communication and agreements around things that could be unclear. Who's responsible for what and when and how is it that this is going to, or what is it that this is going to require from each of our organizations or communities? Getting as much of that out in writing is a lot of the work of building collaborations that are able to last. A lack of communication and infrastructure. So one of the things that my team often talk to me about is the importance of project management software. Because one of the things that does is it takes that writing of a plan to a next level. There's lots of them out there, whether that's Monday or Slack, etc. There's tons of things that you can use that are project management software that allow people to see who's responsible for what, when it's due, and whether or not it's been accomplished. So being able to deal with a lack of communication through the use of technology is one of the things, especially building an infrastructure around that communication, that will be pivotal in creating and maintaining collaborations that last. Technology is not a replacement for personal interaction, whether those are meetings or Zooms or Teams calls or whatever platform you use to be able to talk digitally, or it's a telephone. That being able to talk regularly, communicating regularly, and writing and verbally and in person when possible is important. Uneven capacity or resources. One of the things that we've done for most of our 24 years is seek out partnerships with things that are bigger than us because they have resources and sometimes human capacity, but not necessarily creative capacity. And so we understand the thing that we bring to that partnership is that creative capacity, the imagination, the will to work hard on a particular set of tasks related to advancing the larger mission. So uneven capacity or resources can be a challenge. It can also be an asset. You just have to understand the role that you play and the role that your partners play, whether they're bringing capacity or resources, or both. One partner could be doing the labor while others benefit. So if you've ever had a team project, whether in school or at your place of worship, where there's just a bunch of people who are responsible for working on a thing, there's usually a disproportionate disbursement of the labor. It might have been agreed that everyone would work on the project the same way, but life be lifing, and one of the things that makes some people walk away from partnerships is they feel like the other partners are not pulling their weight. This can be deflating or demoralizing, but it's also a part, unfortunately, of working with people that are not you. They're not all going to do the things that you would do in the same ways that you would. And so you have to having a level of understanding, of grace, but also promoting accountability, being able to talk to someone about why they're not able to pull their weight. There might be a real good reason. Or they might just not have the capacity to be able to contribute in the way that they thought originally. But being able to talk about it makes it so that that relationship can be salvaged even if the collaboration can't be. A coalition where one organization becomes the de facto project manager because the others lack bandwidth is often the case. There will usually be one or two people in a group that do the lion's share of the work. And some of those reasons, like I said, could be that someone else wasn't doing something, but the truth is, you might have also done a really bad job of thinking through how to delegate responsibilities. I know that's something I still struggle with. Being able to it's not for me a matter of like trusting, giving something over. It is thinking all of the steps down the road of what's going to need to happen and being able to think about how to delegate that. That's where the project management software can be really helpful. So I'd encourage you to investigate one. If you're for internal to your organization, but also when you decide to collaborate with another organization. In this next segment, let's talk about protecting identity while collaborating. You need to know what are your non-negotiables? What are your values? What's the voice that you support the mission signature? How it is that the thing that you're doing is in alignment with what people know you to be doing. So for example, I run a hip hop organization. We've done work with the go-go community. We've done work with the rock community, with the R&B community, etc. But most people who know that we exist know us for the work we do in the hip hop community. Why do we work in those other genres? Because hip hop borrows, remixes, reimagines all those genres. So we see them as connected to hip hop. Whether the people that practice them or not is not relevant for us. We see a relationship with those communities because we share culture, we share tradition, we share histories. You need to bring your distinctive practice to the collaborative, A collaborative doesn't require you to stop being who it is that you are and what it is that you do. You are at the table because you have something unique to contribute that no one else at the table or few other people at the table have. Recognize your value and make sure that you bring it with you. Don't trade core brand identity for access. Meaning, if you're going to build something, make sure that it is in alignment not just with what people believe you to be, but what you as an organization know you are, your values, your mission, your priorities, whatever language you use to describe why you do what you do. Make sure that the people who are collaborating with you understand how the work that you're doing together is in alignment with those things. That's really important, number one, for them to understand why you're there. Two, what you bring to the table. Three, what are your non-negotiables in terms of your values or your priorities, so that they understand if they want to take on this other partner or this sponsor or this venue, is it in alignment with everyone who's at the table? Values, priorities, commitments. I just recently had the experience of doing an event at a venue that a lot of people didn't want us to do an event at. And in the end, that probably will do some damage to us. But I made the decision because we valued the relationship with the people that made that event possible. And we believed that we would bring a level of capacity and they would bring a level of capacity, and that we could draw the audience that the event was designed to bring. And we did. Thinking about who's in charge of the narrative of the work you're doing. If you're not in a place where you're hiring a publicist to help you shape a narrative, part of thinking about tasks and responsibilities for projects is also how you talk about the work and why it matters as a group, not just you as an individual, not just you as an individual organization, but how as a group you talk about the work and why it matters. If you've not built a coalition before, the reality is if you run a nonprofit, you've been doing this with your board members. You've been doing this with your staff. With a great onboarding process. Part of that foundation laying for a coalition is thinking through this language, thinking through these talking points, not in a single meeting, but over a period of time, so that you're all, as they say, singing from the same hymnal, meaning you've got the same music, everyone's on the same time, everyone's explaining the work the same way, and at the same time incorporating the values and the priorities of all the partners, making sure that everyone is seen and not lost under this larger brand, this larger project that you're working on together, but that each flavor in the gumbo is pronounced. Representation agreements. Who speaks, where, and how? Does everyone in your coalition speak? Is everyone prepared to speak? Everyone should have the same information, the same knowledge, but when it comes time for a press conference or a media appearance or an interview with print media or digital media, who are the persons or people that are going to be responsible for doing that speaking? Is it a person from every single organization? The answer could be yes. Oftentimes, it's usually a person who is selected to be the spokesperson. So there can be a kind of consistency across the various platforms where stories will be told. I personally think that if you're building a coalition, there is nothing wrong with having multiple spokespeople so long as everyone is on the same page. Having one person for print media, having one person for internet media, one person for television or for radio. One of the things that does is also allow each of your partners to get public shine in the process of telling the story of the work that you're doing. Tools to consider making would be a messaging document so that there is a single set of talking points or explanations of the work that you're doing and who's in the coalition. You need brand guidelines. How can the brand that's created around that coalition be used from color to size to placement? Thinking about how it is that other people will amplify your work, and other people meaning partners or sponsors or members of the coalition. Shared language. Building that shared language together is going to be all the difference in the world, because nobody who runs a thing likes to necessarily be told how they have to tell a story. But they love to be a part of helping build that story, being able to help share that story. So making room for a process in this coalition building to develop shared language, critical. Key insights. Healthy coalitions amplify identity. Unhealthy coalitions blur and absorb it. What does that mean? If there are 20 organizations partnering on a thing and you don't know any of them because they're not actually being lifted up as part of the coalition, that's a problem. If there are 5 organizations and you only know the one that has the spokesperson that appears on media, and that person that appears on media isn't talking about the other 4, that's a problem. Because if ultimately the goal of bringing organizations and projects together is to use each other's voices to amplify each other's voices, you actually have to amplify each other's voices, all right? So protecting identity with collaborations is key. Our next segment, structuring effective partnership work. I talked about this a little bit earlier, but written MOUs and scopes of work. Oftentimes we create MOUs, memorandums of understanding, for contractors. They're also relevant for coalitions. Scopes of work, who's going to do what and when, and have that detailed in writing as opposed to operating under an understanding. One of my favorite things in all of the partnership work we do is usually it's with someone that's sponsoring the thing that we're doing. So part of what we work out is what part of marketing are they doing, what part of programming are they doing, what part of stage management are they doing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and then detailing all the things that they expect of us through the partnership, so that each side or each partner is crystal clear on what everyone's doing. Now, it's super easy if you're only 2 things partnering, but when you're 10 things partnering, or you're partnering with individual artists or just individual people, it becomes more difficult. But this is also where having scopes of work and MOUs will help to mitigate conflict, make it easier for people to know how it is that they should be contributing and when. I talked about this in a different context when I talked about board member letters of agreement, where when volunteers join your board of directors, being really clear on what it is you need from them and when makes it a whole lot easier for them to know how to be successful. Having designated conveners or lead agencies, meaning who's responsible for bringing us together. Is that a task that falls to one organization? Is that a shared responsibility within the coalition? Meeting at people's headquarters in a coalition is a great way to learn more about their organizations. I know for a fact there's so many gatherings I've been to with organizations that had a staff of 1 or 2 people, and we'd meet at some beautiful university that's super structured and has got catering and all kinds of things that make it look like they're a bigger organization than they are, which then leads people to believe that they can do more than they actually have the capacity to do. Being able to go and do site visits of people's headquarters, people's offices, people's locations is a great insight into who it is they are, where it is they are, what it is they're doing, and potentially what they have the capacity to contribute, so that you don't enter into a coalition with the understanding everyone must be equal in terms of what they have and what they contribute. It is perfectly fine to have what could be described as uneven resource capacity within coalitions, but there must be shared power. There must be shared decision making if it's a coalition. Having work plans and timelines and meeting cadences. How often are we going to meet? When are we going to meet? What are we going to meet about? That work plan could be described as an agenda. It could be a working agenda. Timelines, how often are we checking in? Is there a full group check-in? Are there partner check-ins? If you're using a project management software, are we doing our updates electronically so that when we meet, we've already all been updated, so now we're meeting about new things? Thinking about kind of the flow of how it is that you work together is going to be very important to building a successful coalition. I've been a part of multiple coalitions that were not successful, where we were convened as individual organizations or people without clarity on these things. How often do we meet? When's the next meeting? And what are we working on? What is the thing that's bringing us together? So often, in fact, many of the coalitions I've joined eventually turned into therapy sessions where we weren't actually meeting about anything other than what was going on in our lives and being able to have someone to talk to. That is not, I mean, that's useful. It's useful. But oftentimes, that's not what people sign up for. They want to be a part of advancing some set of ideas, projects, programs that better our communities, not just our own individual lives. You need budget clarity and resource allocation. So if you're going after a shared grant for this coalition, how does the money get divided? Is it divided evenly, even if we have different capacities and different responsibilities? Or is it based on the percentage of work that we're going to do? So that if it's a $100,000 grant and we're doing 50% of the work, does that mean 50% of the grant should go to us? I would say the answer to that question I would say the answer to that question could be yes. Does it have to be yes? No, because there might be one of the goals of the coalition might be to build the capacity of some of the other organizations. And so even though they're doing less work, they actually need more resources to be able to do the thing they're doing. So that's a legitimate conversation to have up front with an individual artist, with a coalition, with an institutional partner. How is the money being divided? As creatives and organizers, it never ceases to surprise me how uncomfortable most people are talking about money, whether it's their own personal money or money that they want access to, that you would be well served to learn why you're uncomfortable about it, do something about it so you can be comfortable. Because you might be missing out on opportunities to have your work invested in because you're not willing or able to explain why, yes, I'm doing less work, but I actually have higher expenses associated with this project. I need to bring on a new staff person to work on this coalition. And that's going to cost me more than you supplementing the salary or stipend of someone that's already on your team, because I got to find them, I got to interview them, and I got to bring them on. So understanding how does the money get spent, how is the budget divided, etc. Decision-making rules: consensus, majority, delegated authority. Each one has its own strength. Consensus often takes longer, but ideally, everyone who's a part of the coalition accepts the decision that is made, even if it wouldn't have been the decision that they would make. Majority rules can sour some people to participation in a coalition, but it does make it easier to say, well, the majority of us said that we thought that this was a good idea, and we're able to move forward on it. Now, what might happen is those people that lost might drag their feet on the project. So getting clarity around levels of comfort, around consensus, majority, or delegated authority meaning, so you're in charge of the marketing, one common unity. So this is going to be the budget for it. You figure out how it is that you're going to break down that budget to be able to make the biggest difference in amplifying the work that we're doing. And you come back and let us know how you're going to do it, versus us needing to vote on every single line item in a budget. We trust you. Here's your portion. Let us know how you're going to break it down. So some of the ways that I talked a little bit about examples of how we've approached collaboration. That's included things like collaborating with embassies abroad. Those have been some of the most interesting collaborations, mostly because dealing with time zones, trying to understand communities that we haven't been to or worked in, working with a new partner organization on the ground, because almost every time we've partnered with an embassy, they've required us to work with one of their local partners. All of them have been awesome, who understood the local context and were crystal clear on how what we could bring to the collaboration would be useful. We've also had what could be described as an activation framework with the Downtown DC Bid, who's one of our longest partners, thanks to a former member of their team, Remy Wallace, and the continuing staff who were there who continued to collaborate with us. We did things like the Chinatown Block Party series. We did Academy workshop pop-ups in different parts of Chinatown. And then the most successful partnership we've had up to this point is Jazz and Blossoms. We're actually looking to do a couple of more events with them this year in the spring. But all of that grew out of this kind of activation framework. We pitch an idea, we request a budget, they provide that budget, they help with marketing, they help with securing permits, they do the kind of logistics of the event work, and then we do the stage management and the marketing design, et cetera, et cetera. We have a clear set of delegated tasks between each of us in the partnership, and each of us does our part very well. Another example would be a multi-school WBL Academy partnership. For a number of years after COVID, we were a partner with something called the Connected Schools Initiative, where we would partner with different schools to bring classes into schools as elective classes during the day. This was a really transformational partnership that took what we were doing in an after-school context and brought it into a K through 12 experience for DC public school children throughout the city. We brought the technical expertise, the school brought the space and the resources to be able to help fund the supplies and the teaching artists. All right, so those are some good examples of structuring effective partnerships that we've done. Feel free to drop in the chat, maybe partnerships that you've done that you felt were really effective, just so that other people who watch this video will be able to check it out. Let's talk about when to walk away. So every time you're invited to a table doesn't mean you need to remain at that table. Every person that you invite to a table doesn't mean that they need to stay at that table. So one of the things, using kind of the current language, when the coalition is extractive, meaning that other partners take from you what is yours. For example, if you create an event and then you bring it to a coalition and that coalition tries to act as though that event was actually the coalition's event when really it was yours, that's extractive. Versus when you take the things you learn from putting together an event, a project, a curriculum, etc., and you bring that experience of building that to the coalition and then you all co-create something together, that's not extractive, that's collaborative. When mission drift outweighs benefit, mission drift is, according to many people, one of the most dangerous things for nonprofits, that they get started for one reason and they drift into something else. I personally think it would be fair if there were people in the world that accused Words, Beats, and Life of having mission drift. Why do I say that? Well, when I started Words, Beats, and Life with Kaniqua and Steve and Shatisha, this was never supposed to be anybody's job. This was supposed to be our community give back. And so just the fact that it went from a volunteer opportunity to a salary position for me and some others, and contracted work consistently throughout the year for others, that wasn't part of the original mission. Now, is that mission creep? No, that's business development. But let me tell you what is mission creep. Well, one of the things that happened running that program at the Benning Park Recreation Center, where we first started the academy, was we had an artist come visit us who invited us to come to his country. Just a one-off thing. Someone invited us to come to his country. We were able to raise some money years later and make that happen. That wasn't part of the original mission of Words, Beats, and Life, cultural diplomacy. It wasn't. It wasn't something that had ever even occurred to me or the founders as a priority, because we were so focused on how we could create a really high quality after school and Saturday experience for young people who wanted to learn the elements of hip hop. So it's fair to say that getting into the cultural diplomacy work that we do is an example of mission creep. Now, do I think it's still mission aligned? Yes, because when we travel abroad, all we do is the same thing we do in DC, which is to do master classes, to do showcases, to do performances, to train people in the arts. So it's still in line with our arts education core mission. You should strongly consider walking away from tables that drag you and your mission down a road that neither you, your staff, your board, your constituents or community members would support you being on. Even if you as an individual person see value and merit in the thing that the coalition is being organized to do, you can do that as an individual. You don't need to bring your organization to the table to help advance that mission. You were created for a very specific thing or a specific set of things. And holding true to those things to go deep rather than wide, I think is important, especially in the early stages when everyone who just learns that you're in the world doing something is going to want to pull you in every direction possible. When timelines collapse because there is no accountability is another time when it's okay to walk away and say, this was a good idea, we had good intentions, but we do not have enough time to do this in a way that's actually going to be effective in the ways that we originally envisioned as a coalition. So either we need to delay the delivery of this thing that we're working on, or its launch or announcement, or I need to walk away because I can't, as an individual organization, organizational leader, or artist, have this coalition become a time suck. I'm here to contribute, and if the timelines collapse because there's no accountability, it's okay to walk away. When one partner refuses transparency, what can transparency look like? Who's in my staff? Who's on my board? Who are the funders that I'm working to bring to this table? That if you're not willing to share all of the things that you're going to bring to add, because everyone's going to be accountable for what you bring, if you're not willing, or the people at the table are not willing to be transparent, it's okay to walk away. Because not only is their reputation on the line, their credibility on the line, but because you're part of the coalition, so is yours. So it's okay to walk away. When a collaboration becomes a reputational risk, that could be because someone was invited to the table who is a Molotov cocktail thrower. And that's not the energy that your organization or company promotes. And so you can't afford to allow the way that they are in the world to impact how it is that you are perceived. You joined a coalition to do something bigger and better with other people. If that effort results in doing damage to the work that you were actually created to do, you have to walk away. Partnership is not peacekeeping. It's shared production. If production breaks down, recognize it renegotiate or exit. So partnership is not peacekeeping. It is shared production. If production breaks down, renegotiate or exit. All right? How about this? Let's talk about some questions that maybe the people watching this might have. So what if you need the partnership for funding visibility, but it's draining you? So this kind of goes to some of the things I was just talking about around knowing when it's okay to walk away. All money is not good money. All recognition is not good recognition. One of the questions you'll have to ask is, if it is potentially draining you, your staff, the work that you're primarily responsible for doing, if it's taking you away from your core, if this is not an add-on, like think about this like as a meal where there is a main dish and then side dishes. If the coalition becomes the main dish, something has gone wrong. Something has gone wrong. And it's okay to walk away, but it's also okay to renegotiate to make it clear that this is a side dish opportunity for you, even though that funding visibility is important, that media visibility is important, that coalition visibility is important. It can't distract from what is the core of the work that you do. How do I protect my brand voice without seeming controlling? So I would suggest that one of the ways to do that would be to make sure that you are an active participant in developing the voice for any project that you are a part of, any coalition that you are a part of, so that the story that's being told is a net add to everyone that's in the coalition. And if there's something that is a higher priority for one group than another that they want to include, but it is taking away or removing value for some of the partners, that is not voice that should be a part of this coalition. Understanding how you talk about why you're together is critical. How about this question? What if a partner is underperforming but politically important? We all have had the experience of working with folks that are underperforming. It's really a question for you. Does it matter to you that everyone contribute equally? And if it does, you got to say that at the beginning of the coalition building so that everyone understands that if we're not all pulling in the same direction at the same time, and some of us are more content with watching while the rest of us pull, either you declare that at the beginning and you all understand that that's the kind of coalition you're building, or you say that this isn't the coalition for you. Your work is important, you are valuable, but we need everyone who's in this tug of war pulling on the rope at the same time in the same direction. Here's another question. How do I keep coalitions from becoming meetings with no outputs? So there's tons of instructional videos and books on building effective agendas. One of the things that's really important, especially in a coalition, or really kind of any meeting, that if you want people to be involved and invested in the meeting, having them be involved and invested in the development of the agenda is a great way to do that. Whether that is because they have a responsibility to report out the thing that they've been working on as a part of the agenda, or they've been doing research and their job is to bring that research to the table, or whatever the thing is. But trying to have meetings where there are as many voices as possible, talking about what they did, what they're doing, and what they want to do is a great formula to make sure that everyone is producing, everyone is transparent, and everyone has a sense of what everyone else is doing in that coalition. Here's another question. How do I rebuild a damaged partnership? Well, every partnership is not for every phase in your organization's development. There are plenty of opportunities that could present themselves that you're not ready for. I'm gonna tell it to you now, and I know so many people who do not believe that this is true. There are plenty of opportunities that will present themselves that you are not ready for. Not because you're not qualified in the abstract, not because you don't bring some set of value to the project, but because you don't have the capacity to deliver at the scale and of the quality that the partner is expecting, and you could do irreparable damage to your own reputation by taking on that work. Sometimes it's a good idea to give someone else work or to build a coalition, a set of partnerships to help advance that work so that you don't have to do it alone. If you've got a damaged partnership, time is a beautiful thing. I have my own story of a partnership that I had with a really generous restaurateur in the DMV that I did consecutive years of damage to. And and by consecutive, I mean two consecutive years of damage to. And it probably took 5 years to rebuild that relationship. There are people that do this work. Organizations might get the headlines or be in the press release, but there are people that do this work. And when you damage a relationship with a person at an institution, not only do you damage your relationship with that person, but also with that institution, because they talk within the institution about you so that other people know, oh, this isn't a person to work with, or this is someone that can't be counted on for X, Y, and Z. And it will take time. Most people, or I'm going to say most, many people in time will allow for hurt feelings or disappointment to be resolved. But that doesn't mean that they'll ever work with you again. They just might stop talking trash about you in the streets. So you can try to make amends, especially if it's just professional. If the damage was professional and not personal, you can work to try to make amends. And if you don't have a history of, burning bridges while you're still on them, most people, or many people, will give you the professional courtesy of the benefit of the doubt. You can think about each of these questions as the beginnings of your own questions to be answered about building effective coalitions. All right, let's get into your homework. So coalition readiness self-assessment. What I want you to do is get a piece of paper, or you can do this on your computer. I want you to list your current or planned partners. I love building a grid with dates on it that says when I'm going to do a thing and if I did it. So I'm a fan of an Excel sheet, but you just get a regular sheet of paper, journal. I love the notes function on my phone and computer. I love building notes. I discovered the other day I had literally like 500 different notes in my note section. Many of them are lists from years ago that I just didn't finish. So list your current or planned partners. Identify your mission and your non-negotiables. I want you to write those things down. What is your mission and what are the non-negotiables in terms of who you would work with on what based on the mission of your organization? Write one sentence that articulates what your organization uniquely brings to any coalition. What is the thing or things that your organization uniquely brings to a coalition? Identify which partners have misaligned expectations. So in that list of partners that you had, which partners have misaligned expectations? Meaning, if you were to partner with the National Endowment for the Arts and you want to do a humanities-based project, but they don't fund humanities projects. There's the National Endowment for the Humanities to do that. So who has misaligned expectations on that list? Meaning that the things that matter to them and the things that matter to you are not in alignment. Draft 3 measurable outcomes you want to build as a result of collaborating with that list of current and planned partners. 3 measurable outcomes you want from the coalition. Those could be things you want internal to your organization, in the community, as a result of the project. Create a 1-page partnership brief, meaning a scope, roles that people would perform, risks, and benefits. There's just 1 page where you would detail what the benefits of and the risks of someone choosing to partner with you. What's the scope of that partnership and what's their role in it? I'm literally going through this right now, working to build a coalition around a festival we have planned in August, and that I want other people to play a larger role in the planning and the delivery of, and to own it. Schedule a conversation with at least 1 partner about clarity or alignment. So that the people from that list, pick 1 person, ideally someone that you know, to reach out to them, to talk to them about this coalition idea that you have, to see about your success at making this a clear pitch and asking them if they feel like it's aligned because you thought it was aligned. Make sense? All right. One of the things that you'll need to ask yourself at some point is, where are you over contributing or under advocating? Where are you over contributing or under advocating? The answer might be no place. You might be contributing exactly the right amount and advocating just the right amount. But what does advocacy look like within a coalition? Is that advocacy for your organization, advocacy for your community, advocacy for your clients? What are you being an advocate for by being at this table? And then what are you contributing? And is it in alignment with what you have as resources and capacity? If you had to end 1 partnership tomorrow, which one would you end? And why? I assume right now that you're a person in the world who has relationships with people to do the work that you're doing. If you had to end 1 partnership tomorrow, which one would you end and why? Those are your homework questions and reflections. All right, so let me go ahead and wrap this thing up. Coalition work is not just strategy, it's a skill. Collaboration without clarity is compromise, but collaboration with alignment is acceleration. We grow bigger, faster, and smarter when we work together. It's that African proverb, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, take a group. So we grow bigger, faster, and smarter when we work together, but only when we know who we are and advocate for it, and structure joint work with accountability and shared ownership. If today's episode surfaces one thing for you to examine, Let it be this. Great partnerships start with identity, not need. Thank you for tuning into Wednesday Wisdom with yours truly. This episode, if this episode served you, share it with someone navigating coalition work. And tune in next week as we continue building strong organizations capable of transformative impact. All right? Thanks so much for joining me. Peace, y'all.